Here is a question that should stop you cold. In a country of 240 million people, a nuclear-armed nation, a founding member of the United Nations, a country with poets and philosophers and one of the world's most ancient civilizations running through its soil, why is it that a man can walk into a police station and confess to strangling his own daughter and walk out the same day? Why is it that a woman can be doused in petrol and set on fire by her own brothers and the case never reaches a court? Why is it that property disputes between cousins end not in lawyers' offices but in graveyards? These are not rare exceptions in Pakistan, they are patterns, documented, studied, repeated patterns that have been occurring for generations and are, by multiple measures, getting worse rather than better. This is not a video about demonizing a country or its people. Pakistan has extraordinary people. It has courage and beauty and resilience in abundance. This is a video about a specific documented crisis, the normalization of killing as a solution to personal and family conflict, and the forces that created it and continue to sustain it. Because understanding why this happens is the only path toward its stopping. Let us start with a number that should be impossible. Pakistan records approximately 13,000 to 15,000 murders annually in official statistics, but researchers and human rights organizations consistently estimate the real figure is 2 to 3 times higher, somewhere between 25,000 and 40,000 deaths per year that qualify as homicide but are never recorded as such. That would place Pakistan among the highest homicide rates of any country not actively at war. The gap between official and real numbers exists for a specific reason that tells you almost everything about how this crisis sustains itself. In Pakistan, a large proportion of killings are resolved not through the criminal justice system, but through private family negotiation. The legal mechanism is called diyat, blood money. Under Pakistani law, which incorporates specific interpretations of Islamic jurisprudence, the family of a murder victim has the legal right to forgive the killer and accept financial compensation instead of pursuing criminal prosecution. The state then has no further role. The killer walks free. The consequence of this system is that murder in a significant number of cases has a price tag rather than a prison sentence. And when the killer and the victim belong to the same family, which is extremely common, the financial negotiation happens entirely within the family. The case never reaches a court, and the killing is simply absorbed into the family's private history and never counted in any official record. This is the structural foundation on which Pakistan's killing crisis is built. Not poverty alone, not religion alone, not culture alone, a legal architecture that makes killing resolvable without consequence. Now let us look at where these killings are concentrated, because the patterns reveal the specific triggers that drive them. The first and most visible category is honor killing. In Urdu, it is called karokari, literally black man, black woman, a designation applied to anyone accused of bringing sexual dishonor upon a family. The accusation alone is often sufficient. Trial, evidence, and proof are irrelevant. The killing is considered by the perpetrators not as murder but as the restoration of family honor, a moral obligation rather than a crime. The Human Rights Commission of Pakistan documents approximately 1,000 honor killings per year in official records. Researchers at Rutgers University and multiple Pakistani academic institutions estimate the real figure at between 2,000 and 4,000 annually, with the majority occurring in Punjab, Sindh, and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. The victims are overwhelmingly women and girls. The perpetrators are overwhelmingly male family members, brothers, fathers, husbands, uncles. Zainab Ansari was 7 years old. Her 2018 rape and murder in Kasur, Punjab became a national crisis when it emerged that she was the 12th child to be sexually assaulted and killed in the same neighborhood within a 2-year period, and that police had repeatedly failed to act on earlier cases. Her killer, Imran Ali, was eventually executed in one of the rare cases in which the system functioned as it was supposed to. But Zainab's case became famous precisely because it was an exception. The families of the 11 children before her had received almost nothing. Samia Shahid was a British Pakistani woman who traveled to Pakistan in 2016 to visit her family. She had divorced her first husband and a cousin and remarried a man her family had not approved. She was strangled. Her father and first husband were charged. Her father was released on bail. Her first husband was acquitted. Her new husband, who had been in the UK at the time of her death, was initially listed as a suspect by Pakistani police. a detail that tells you something about how investigations of honor killings are frequently structured to protect perpetrators rather than victims. Quandil Balok was Pakistan's most famous social media personality, bold, unapologetic, and deeply controversial in a society that does not easily accommodate women who refuse to be invisible. In July 2016, her brother Muhammad Wasim strangled her in her sleep at her family home in Multan. He confessed publicly and without remorse. He told reporters he had no regrets. He said she had brought dishonor to the family. Wasim was convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment. His mother and other family members subsequently filed for forgiveness under the Diyat provisions, which, if granted by the victim's family, which in this case was effectively the perpetrator's own family, could have resulted in his release. The courts ultimately rejected this application in Quandil's case on the grounds that the state had a public interest in the prosecution. But the attempt was made, the legal mechanism was invoked, and in thousands of cases each year where the victim is less famous, the mechanism succeeds. The second major category is property and inheritance killing. Pakistan's land registration systems are incomplete, contested, and deeply vulnerable to manipulation. Inheritance disputes, and particularly over agricultural land in Punjab and Sindh, are among the most common triggers for family violence in the country. Brothers kill brothers. Cousins kill cousins. Entire family branches are eliminated in multi-generational disputes over plots of land whose legal ownership has never been clearly established. A 2019 study by the Pakistan Institute of Development Economics found that land disputes are involved in approximately 40% of all rural murders in Punjab. The pattern typically follows a specific sequence. A patriarch dies. His will, if one exists, is contested. One branch of the family occupies the disputed land. Another branch attempts to reclaim it through legal channels. The legal process moves slowly and expensively across years or decades. Frustration builds. At some point, someone reaches for a weapon instead of a lawyer. The village of Sahiwal in Punjab has been documented by journalists and researchers as a location where multi-generational land disputes between extended family branches have produced dozens of deaths over several decades, with the original dispute over agricultural land inherited from a common ancestor, still unresolved in courts while the killing continues in fields and alleys. The third category is domestic killing. Wives murdered by husbands, daughters murdered by fathers, women murdered for seeking divorce, for refusing arranged marriages, for attempting to leave violent relationships. The Aurat Foundation, Pakistan's longest-running women's rights organization, documented 1,575 cases of violence against women resulting in death in a single year in its most recent comprehensive report, and explicitly noted that this figure represents only cases that reach some form of official record or media attention. The real number, the foundation stated, is unknown but substantially higher. Taslim Solangi was 19 years old and 8 months pregnant when her in-laws accused her of adultery. Her husband and in-laws held her down while a dog was set upon her. She was beaten and then drowned. 4 people were arrested. The case drew national attention in 2008. It represented, advocates said at the time, not an extreme outlier, but a visible example of treatment of women that occurs routinely and invisibly. So why does this happen? Why does Pakistan specifically, not every developing country, not every Muslim majority country, not every post-colonial state, have this particular concentration of family-directed lethal violence? The answer requires looking at several interlocking systems that reinforce each other. The first is the honor-shame social architecture. Pakistani society, particularly in rural areas and among more traditional urban communities, operates on a collective honor system in which the behavior of individual family members is experienced as a direct reflection on the entire family's social standing. A daughter who chooses her own husband does not merely make a personal choice. She is understood within this framework to have damaged the social capital of every male relative she has. That damage is experienced as concrete and serious, affecting marriage prospects of siblings, business relationships of fathers and brothers, social standing in the community. The killing within this framework is not irrational violence. It is a calculated response to a perceived social threat. This system did not emerge from Islam. Honor killing predates Islam in the regions that now constitute Pakistan and occurs in non-Muslim communities in South Asia as well. But in Pakistan specifically, a selective and contested reading of Islamic jurisprudence has been used to provide religious legitimacy to practices that most Islamic scholars across the world explicitly condemn. The conflation of cultural practice with religious obligation has made reform politically dangerous. Any politician who proposes meaningful legal change risks being accused of attacking Islam rather than defending women. The second factor is institutional failure at scale. Pakistan's police force is widely documented as corrupt, underfunded, undertrained, and in rural areas effectively controlled by local landed elites. The same class of people most likely to be perpetrating or protecting honor killings and land dispute murders. Cases are routinely buried, misclassified, or simply never registered. Victims' families are pressured into silence. Witnesses recant. The judiciary is overloaded to a degree that strains comprehension. Pakistan has approximately 23 judges per million people, compared to 150 per million in the United States and 51 per million in India. A case entering the lower courts can take 15 to 20 years to reach resolution. In that environment, private resolution through negotiation or violence becomes rational from a purely practical standpoint. The formal system is not a viable alternative. The third factor is economic pressure in a specific form. Pakistan has one of the highest rates of cousin marriage in the world. Approximately 50 to 70% of marriages are between first or second cousins in many communities. This practice, driven by the same logic of keeping resources and social bonds within extended family networks, creates a social structure in which the people most likely to kill you are also the people you are related to by blood, the people you share property with, the people you are married to or whose children are married to yours. The density of overlapping relationships, kinship, marriage, property, honor, concentrated within the same extended family network creates conditions where a single conflict can escalate across multiple dimensions simultaneously. What does the path forward look like? The Protection Against Harassment of Women at the Workplace Act, the Prevention of Anti-Women Practices Act, and amendments to the Pakistan Penal Code that were pushed through in 2004 and 2016 made honor killing a non-compoundable offense, meaning it cannot be resolved through the diyat forgiveness mechanism. These were significant legislative steps. They have not been matched by enforcement. Laws exist on paper that, if implemented, would fundamentally change the incentive structure around family killing. The gap between legislation and enforcement is where the crisis lives. Civil society organizations, the Aurat Foundation, War Against Rape, the Human Rights Commission of Pakistan, the Lawyers for Human Rights and Legal Aid have documented and fought this crisis for decades with limited resources and frequent harassment. Individual Pakistani lawyers, judges, journalists, and activists have risked their lives to pursue cases that powerful families wanted buried, and Pakistani women themselves, in numbers that have grown significantly over the past 2 decades, have organized, protested, documented, and refused silence in ways that were not possible a generation ago. The crisis is real, the scale is serious, the structural causes are deep and interconnected, and the people working to change it are real too. And they are Pakistani. Understanding what is happening is not an act of condemnation. It is the beginning of the only conversation that can lead anywhere useful. Because 25,000 to 40,000 people a year, most of them killed by someone they knew, someone they were related to, someone who called it justice, deserve more than silence.